Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz, here to continue our Supercoach BBL team discussions. Second team up is the Melbourne Stars, and a very important team. But before we get into exploring them, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms, everywhere where you get your podcasts, in particular YouTube and the Spotify, and to get in contact with us via Twitter, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swizz26. All right, Melbourne Stars, I've dubbed them as the second most important team, mainly because of that fixture. Rounds 1, 3 and 5, they have double games, which effectively means they have 7 games in their first 5 rounds, with the buys bookend either side of their round 3 and their round 5 doubles. So very important to try to balance how many stars you can get in, because you don't want a situation where round 1 you have too many where your whole bench is taken up by Melbourne Stars players. And probably loses the opportunity to loophole. And round 6, you don't want to be kind of left with too many Melbourne Stars, as other teams are then, moving on to other players. But in particular, by the time you get to that round 6 situation, you're going to have a lot of players leaving for other tournaments, and you're already going to have guys who potentially aren't playing. And then to have a bunch of Melbourne Stars players there that you can't trade out. So at best, you're looking at wanting, effectively say 2 left on your buys, maybe 3 can be effective. So if you've got, say, a wicketkeeper, bowler and a batter, so they're your 3 positions, which means if you traded out 3 or even use your extra trade that you'll get twice throughout the season, you could have up to 7 of these Melbourne Stars players at any given time. All right, their likely round 1 lineup. Stars was a little bit more difficult because they've got 21 players on their list. Now, a couple of them aren't available, but you can see there a lot of white happening. So if I go through, so I've got Tom Rogers and Sam Harper opening the batting. Harper has moved over from the Renegades, will keep. Had some really good form in both the Big Bash, not the Big Bash, the one-day series and the Sheffield Shield. In particular, he made a nice 100 the other day, batting at 7 when the rest of the Victorian boys were really struggling. Maxwell, probably the flexibility of the Stars lineup, he could come anywhere from open to number 5, and there's a lot with these Stars players that could be that, but I think for game 1, Maxwell probably bats 3, could potentially 4. I guess it will depend on how Rogers and Harper start. So if one of them gets out real early, like in that first 1 or 2 overs, potentially there Larkin or Stoinis might come in ahead of him. Then if they get a good start 3 or 4, 5 overs in, and they're already on sort of 40, I can see Maxi coming in at number 3 there for them. Larkin in at 4 for now. Bo Webster part of that PM's 11 game. So I'd expect Webster to come straight back in for game number 2. Stoinis is the interesting one. He is dividing the community at the moment. The problem is, how many overs will he bowl? Has not bowled many overs in the last 3 years. We do see him sometimes rolling the arm over for Australia, but the Stars seem to have a better bowling lineup, so he does have the potential to bowl 1 or 2. In a perfect world, we'd love to see him bowl 3 or 4 so he can activate that economy bonus, but I just don't see that happening. If we knew he was opening and Harper hadn't come across, well, I think he would have been a more interesting pick. However, due to the fact that he's potentially batting as low as 5 or 6, I'm not that keen on him, but at 116k, I can see the appeal. But I think there's a bit of a buyer's beware there in regards to Stoinis. That could be the one that bites me on the bum when we get to it. But I'm a bit worried there. But I've got him at 5 at the moment, and playing more as a batsman, maybe rolls the arm over for 1 or 2. Hilton Cartwright does his job at 6, but again, he can move anywhere up that order. They're very flexible. Liam Dawson, the overseas English player, I think he's got the potential to bowl you sort of 3 to 4 overs, depending on how he's bowling. Will come in that middle order. Wouldn't be surprised. Probably a little bit different with the Stars lineup, depending on how they're going, but potentially could move up above maybe a Cartwright in certain games if they are flying. But Dawson looks the lock for the number 7. Jonathan Merlot's just signed a 2-game contract. All the talk is he's going to play one of those 2 starting games. I'd probably expect it maybe even be game number 1 with Stedeke out because of that. Well, I think he's got a bit of a nickel anyway, but was out for the PM's 11 match as it is. So That could be for why Merlot's there. There was talk originally Scotty Boland might get a game before the series, but he's been ruled out as well. Uzma Mir comes in from Pakistan. So him and Harris Ralph had big question marks over because they hadn't got their clearance from Pakistan. But both boys were flown in before their round 1 match. So yes, they become pickable. The only issue is, in regards to Mir and Ralph, they have only got 5-game contracts. So they will not be here for the Stars round 5 game. So they'll play round 1, the double, round 3, the double, and then round 4, the Heat, and then against the Hurricanes, and then they'll go home after that. So, well, not home, but they'll be here for the, I think the Pakistan series, depending on what they want with that. But at the moment, they're only here for that. So it's a bit frustrating because in a perfect world, you would have loved them to play and then leave after that round 5 match into the round 6 bye. But still, I don't mind the idea of picking either Amir or Ralph. They're very accomplished players. Nathan Calder-Mile is an absolute star when he's fit and firing. Unfortunately, we just don't see enough of that. I can definitely see him round 1 coming out and scoring like 150 and potentially, or even just game 1 and then potentially game 2 just not being there and being out injured or something like that. So, it's a bit of hit and miss with Calder-Mile. At 172k, I would rather just fade that just because you just don't know how his body holds up any given week. Harry Brooks in black there. He's over there playing against the West Indies at the moment, but has decided not to come over from England, but from over in the Caribbean at the moment. We've blocked out Boland. Brodie Couch played a great role for us. He was that 42k gun player last season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a run at some point again, but at what point will be interesting. Imad Wasim, another international, and I believe they just signed another quick that's coming out from England to replace Harris Ralph. So I'm sure Imad will get his opportunities too, potentially after Mir leaves. So there's going to be a lot of changing in this star squad. Campbell Callaway's improving better and better each game. I think he's 62k this year. I originally had him lining up at 6, but with everybody sort of coming back, I do think he goes out, but wouldn't be surprised at some point that he gets an opportunity. But obviously not pickable at the moment. Joel Paris was in a lot of people's teams when Harris Ralph and Uzma Mir looked like not playing. 90k was looking a bit of an option, but you can probably scrap him off the list now because of them returning. Rocchiccielli and Burns also. I think they've got a lot of depth there, but if a lot of these guys, Harper, Maxwell in particular, Webster when he comes back, Stoinis, are not going to be part of the Australian Test squad, they're going to have full availability up until at least their round 4 match. So I think that side outside of Merlot, where Steady will come in and then Larkin potentially might sub in some games, with Webster coming in, they look a pretty good lineup and pretty settled, even with that deep squad. So in regards to players that I really like, I think Maxwell, the surprising he's still at 60%. Like I don't really understand why he's not on 100. It just should be the first player picked in everyone's side. We saw what he did against Afghanistan. We saw what he did in the T20 versus India recently. He's just a must for all teams. And the potential that he could bowl any amount of overs depending on how he's going. You just got to have him. Live update, he's up to 64%, but still that's 36% of teams not really taking it serious. Stoinis is the interesting one, 37%. I do think that's really high. I get the price, but you only have to have a look at his scores from previous years, and there's a reason why he is so cheap. So you look at last year, there was a 0, 30, 42, 6, and at 8. Yes, he had an 110 game the round 6 and an 87 against the Sixers, but this is because he plays as a batsman and not a bowler. We know how destructive he can be as a batter. But even the previous year there, he had a 13, 34, 18, a 0, 55. There's not a lot to really. I think you've got to go back like 3 or 4 years where he had that round where he's got the 244, the 163. I think a lot of people are hoping that's going to come back, but that's probably by when he was still bowling. And if he doesn't bowl in games, as a number 5 batsman, I just think there's better value elsewhere. So something to consider as we especially will look through some of these other teams that, maybe Stoinis isn't the one. The only way I'd probably pick Stoinis because it's around one game and their first half against the Heat. If the Stars release their lineups and Stoinis has replaced either Rogers or Harper at the top of the order and he is opening, then you get tempted. The other thing you could potentially do is loophole, and I think of those 37%, there's 14% of them who are loopholing. I've got him on the bench at the moment, Stoinis. I don't know why 4% have Maxwell on the bench as well, like just putting him on the field. But next up with 10% is Harper. Harper is currently in my side. It does give me the flexibility to put him on the bench for round 2 because in that keeping position, and then play the keeper on field, be it the Hurricanes or whoever else I have as the wicketkeeper in my side for that. So I think that gives you a little bit more flexibility. Harper's, as I said, he looked really good in the Shield the other day, crossing over from the Renegades. Yes, his form at times has been patchy, but I think the Stars will probably suit him. He did second half of the year. He went on a roll. He had the 124, 98 and 86, then finished with 8, 3 and 1. So you can get a bit of everything from Harper, but the hope is the new side kind of gives him that boost. And with such a good bowling attack, he can get some of those wicket-keeping points as well. Outside of that, you've got Harris Ralph, who's 5.9%. I think that keeps climbing with the news that at least he's here. Bo Webster's in 10% of teams. I don't know why. As I said, he's out first game. And then Joel Paris now, he's slipped back to 4%, but I'd be taking him out. So, that's where the Stars sit at the moment. And really, as a relevant players, I'd be looking, Maxwell, Harper, potentially Stoinis, Muir, and Ralph are your 5 in particular. I could see people going maybe a Liam Dawson, but with Paul Walter as the Heat players we talked about the last video, I think that's 2 guys at that sort of price range, batting at 7 and rolling the arm over. I think you probably could only go with 1. And if you already got sort of Maxwell and Ralph, that's 2 of your stars, and you probably only want 2 or 3 stars to start off with. And then even when like Stegnicky and Webster come back in, he's going to get less overs as it is Dawson. So I would rather probably start with a Walter over him, but it's not a terrible pick. It's just probably not the best pick compared to some of the others in there. Let us know how many Stars players you're starting. What are you thinking about? Are you considering using them as loopholes for your round 2 matchup? What's kind of your situation for your best team balance, and how do you think that's going to evolve? So, for me, 3 stars I think is the max to start off with, and if you're going to do 3 stars, you're going to have a wicketkeeper, a batsman, and a bowler. And particularly if it is Maxwell, he does give you the ability to start in the batting or the bowling lineup, so it does give you some flexibility there, which is naturally important, especially as these bye rounds hit. All right, check us out on all other videos. They're all going to be coming up soon. We're probably going to move on to the Renegades next, and hopefully you've enjoyed this. Bye.